Continuing the story, we are in Genesis 42. We're picking up in verse 29, and we're going to be going through 43:15 today. I want to get us thinking this morning about someone in general, but maybe it might mean us that we're thinking about this morning. Somebody moving from being reluctant to do something to being ready and thinking about the process that it takes to get that person there. The illustration I want to use this morning is something that I've seen happen in my life over the years, and that is how much I've had to counsel people over the years. And oftentimes, people won't come to counseling until they're absolutely broken, till they're absolutely at a place where there's no other place to turn. And I know, and I've had people share this over the course of years, you know. It's like, I didn't want to come. I didn't want to have to do this. I came. I know I need to be obedient to God, but it took this. And God's hand in our lives to get us to be from going from reluctant, like I don't want to do that, to the place where I know I need to. And the other illustration I can use is I've seen people over the years who I've encouraged them to come to Bible study. I've encouraged them to be part of discipleship, and they wouldn't for whatever reason. And then they got to a place where out of crisis or out of need, they came and they went from being reluctant to ready. Well, that's kind of the situation we're looking at this morning in the text. Jacob. We haven't seen Jacob. We haven't seen the father in a long time, since chapter 37 in verses 33 to 35. And we're going to look there in a couple minutes. But the last time we saw him, his state of mind is not good. Actually, let me show us that up front, 33 to 35. So you go back to Genesis 37. The last time we see Jacob, he is in a really bad state. This is after the boys lied to him about Joseph. They think Joseph is dead. And he says, he examined the tunic and said, "It's my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph surely has been torn to pieces." So he's thinking his son is dead. So Jacob tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "Surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son." So his father wept for him. So the last time we see Joseph is 20 years ago. 20 years ago in this particular state. Last week we saw the brothers come back onto the scene. Now this week we're going to see him come back into the picture. And I want to talk about how God is working through Joseph, like we looked at last week, and his strategy to get his purpose worked out. How is God working to bring Jacob from being reluctant to ready? And I'll say this as well. Not only is he using Joseph in this process to get Jacob to go from being reluctant to do something to be ready to do it, but he's also using this sovereignty to deal with the brothers later. So this is all God's hand working through the whole situation. So let's look at it. How does God get Jacob from reluctant to ready? And I'm going to say this right up front. If you look at the story carefully, he's using Benjamin to get to Jacob. He's going to use his youngest son to get to Jacob because he knows where Jacob's heart is, right? So let's look at it. We're going to look at Jacob's denial in verses 29 through 38. The last part of the chapter, we're going to look at Jacob's denial. And we're going to look at the details that caused Jacob to be averse to the plan that the boys have. Actually, it's Joseph's plan. They don't know it, but it's the plan that they're going to propose to their father. And what we'll see in these verses is Jacob is dead set against what the boys are asking. Absolutely dead set against it. Let's look at it. 29. When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, They told him all that had happened to them, saying, the man, the Lord of the land, that would be Joseph, spoke with us harshly and took us for spies of the country. But we said to him, we are honest men, we are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of our father. One is no longer alive, and the youngest is with our father today in the land of Canaan. Were they being honest about that? Yes, they were. Watch this, not so honest coming up. The man, the Lord of the land, said to us, by this I will know you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me and take grain for the famine in your households and go. But, verse 34, but bring your youngest brother to me that I may know that you're not spies, but honest men. I will give your brother to you and you may trade in the land. Now, is that all honest up to this point? Absolutely. They're just recounting, as they return, they're just recounting everything that had been done to them, they experienced. So everything they're recounting to Jacob is true. So, but watch this. Verse 34 is so crucial. This is God's hand. I'm going to let you guys go. But verse 34, bring your youngest brother to me that I may know that you're not spies but honest men, and I'll give you your brother to you. So that's God working through Joseph to get to Jacob. Think about that with me for a minute. Why is it that Joseph calls for this to be the plan to get Jacob to him? Right? In his thinking, the youngest brother, right? It's his brother. That's his youngest brother. But it's also one of Jacob's favorites as well. And we'll see that when we get a little bit deeper into the text. But it's God's sovereign hand behind the scene because God knows what it's going to take to get Jacob to go from being reluctant, and we'll see that reluctance in a minute, to where he knows he needs to let this plan play out. He's going to use Benjamin, his youngest, right? So the request is, if you're going to come back here, you got to bring Benjamin with you. Does God know what he's doing in this whole plan? Absolutely. Now let's look at 35 and 36. Now it came about as they were emptying their sacks that, behold, every man's bundle of money was in his sack. And when they saw that, their father saw their bundles of money, they were dismayed. Stop on 35 just for a second. One of the brothers had opened his sack earlier and discovered money, right? Now, as they're opening their sacks at home, what are they finding? All the money's been restored. And how do we know the money was restored? Do we need to read into the text? What did we learn last week? Joseph was the one that put it there. Okay? So this is Joseph's hand, God's hand, using Joseph to add to, and they're dismayed. You would be too, right? Let's look at 36. Their father Jacob said to them, okay? So the request basically is, this man in the land has said, we got to come back, but we got to come back with our brother. So it's not their plan necessarily. It's Joseph's plan to get them there. And they know that if they're going to go back, they better listen to what this guy is saying. Listen to what their father says. Their father Jacob said to them, you've bereaved me of my children. Basically, the word bereaved there can mean you left me without children. Now, why is that significant? How does he view the brothers still at this point? Very possibly he's disregarding them, right? You bereaved me of my children. Joseph is no more. Simeon's no more. He thinks Joseph's dead. Where's Simeon? Simeon's back in the land. He's back in Egypt in prison. Simeon's no more, which means I'm not sure he thinks he's ever going to see Simeon again either. What are you guys doing to me, he's saying. What, because of you. And he doesn't know what they've done, but he's still, in a sense, blaming the brothers for Joseph. Because of you, he's dead. Because of you, Simeon's dead in his eyes. And you would take Benjamin? Really? You serious? You're asking for that? Parents, have you ever had that happen before? Where your kids are asking for something and you're going, are you kidding me? Really? Look at this. Look at this. And now you're asking for this. Are you serious? That's what Jacob is saying to them. You got to be kidding me. All these things are against me. So he's really reluctant to give them what they're asking for. Look at verse 37. Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, You may put my 2 sons to death if I don't bring them back to you. You put them in my care, and I'll return them to you. What's he doing? He's requesting of him, Dad, please let this happen. He's the oldest son. He's the firstborn of the family. Dad, what he's saying is, trust me, and if you can't really trust me, I'll give my 2 sons as ransom for Benjamin's protection. I will guarantee he will be safe. Why? Because if anything happens to Benjamin, you can put to death my 2 sons. That's a pretty strong statement to make. That's a pretty strong reassurance to make of your father. I'm willing to give up my 2 kids if anything happens to Benjamin. Wow. You think, well, that would do it, right? Of course he's going to agree now. But look at what he says in 38. But Jacob, contrast to that, Jacob said, My son shall not go down with you, for his brother's dead, and he alone is left. Now think about that. Is he still grieving? He's still grieving. He said at the end of 37, you guys, I'm going to grieve until my days are done. I'm going to go to Sheol in grief. You can't console me. There's a sense in which, and for anybody who's ever been in a place of grief, you know that grief lessens over time, don't you? Do you know that? If you're grieving properly and you're not in dysfunctional grief, which some people, I knew a woman years ago who her husband had died, years before, and she was still dysfunctional in her grief. There is such thing as dysfunctional grief. But in genuine grieving, over the course of time, the grief begins to lessen. I don't know that his grieving is lessening. And even if he's not mourning constantly, he's still thinking about what has happened to his son. And he says, you guys really have the audacity to ask me to send him when you know that Joseph is dead. And if harm should befall him on the journey you're taking, then you'll bring my gray hair down to Sheol in sorrow. So you're going to add to my grief. Really, guys? Seriously going to add to my grief. So Jacob, it's interesting that Jacob doesn't mention the other 10 sons. He doesn't say, well, I'm worried about you guys. What's he focused on? He's still thinking about Joseph, and he's grieving the fact that if he puts up with his plan and he goes along with his plan, he's going to lose Benjamin as well. And Dad says, I'm not going there, guys. But what doesn't he understand? Whose plan is this, church? This is God's plan. But he doesn't understand it at this point until he's going to be put in a place in a minute where he has no choice to go along with the plan. Why? Because God has to play things out the way he needs them to play out, and Jacob has to go along with it. So let's look in verses, chapter 43, 1 through 15. We see God's design. He's going to be set up by the Lord. And we're going to look at the details that caused Jacob to finally become agreeable. Verses 1 and 2, he says, Now the famine was severe in the land. So it came about when they had finished eating the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, Go back, buy us a little food. Right? We're going to see, you're going to see him begin to give into this thought. Guys, we've run out of food. Now, the text doesn't tell us how long they've been home and how much grain they had just gone through, but it's like old Mother Hubbard, right? She comes to the cupboard, and the cupboard is bare, right? How many of you ever been in a place where you've come to the cupboard and you go, I think it's time to go get some groceries, right? Now, we can go to a grocery store. They couldn't. The famine's severe in the land. So he says, okay, guys. So God is working on Jacob's heart to get him to say, guys, it's time to go back. We don't have a choice. You've got to go back and get us some food. Now, what he doesn't understand is that in order to go back, Benjamin's going to have to go with him. So God's beginning to work on his heart, and he doesn't even know it. He wants to say no, but we're going to find out through the text that there's no way that he can say no if they want the food that they need. So they need to go back. And I think Jacob's already beginning to sense that Benjamin needs to go, but he doesn't want to let him go. You ever been in a place where you knew something had to happen, but you were still not ready for it to happen? Can you relate to that this morning? Been there, done that way too many times. Let's look at verses 3 through 5. Judah spoke to him. That's interesting. Judah comes into the picture. We've seen Simeon, he's in prison. We've seen Reuben come on the scene and try to talk to dad. Now Judah comes into the picture. Judah spoke to him, however, saying, the man solemnly warned us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you send our brother with us, we'll go down and buy your food. But if you do not send him, we're not going down. We're not going. We're refusing to go because this is what the guy said. You will not see my face unless your brother's with you. What he's just said to him is, we might as well not even bother going to try to get food. We won't even have an audience with this man unless Benjamin. Now, they're in a pickle. They don't have a choice right now. And what's interesting, you say, well, this is kind of disobedient to their father. And you guys, these are grown men. I was looking this morning, I was looking at the difference in ages. And if you look at Reuben is the firstborn. Reuben is 7 years older than Joseph. Joseph's the next to youngest. And I'm not quite sure how old Benjamin is. So there's probably 10 years between Reuben and Benjamin. Right? That means at this point, these guys are anywhere from Joseph's 37 all the way up to 44. Judah is a little bit younger, so he's probably in his early 40s. He's saying, look, Dad, I'm not going. I'm not going unless you send Benjamin. Because the guy told us, don't even show up. I'm not even going to give you audience unless you bring your brother. Boy, is God setting him up right here. I love it. The way God is going to set him up, and he's going to work on his heart, Jacob's heart, to get him to send Benjamin, to play out his plan. He said, I'm not going, right? It's really interesting that Judah is the one that is making this request because it was Judah who proposed selling Joseph in the first place. Isn't that interesting? I'm not sure. I don't want to read too much into that. But isn't it interesting that Judah is the one whose heart is prompted to say, oh, we got to take Benjamin with us. He doesn't know this is Joseph. But Judah is the one that proposes selling him to the Egyptians in the first place. God's hand is in the middle of the fact that Judah is the one that's saying, God, Father, this is the way it's got to be. All right? Now look at 6 and 7. Then Israel said to him, who's Israel? Israel's Jacob. Okay? Then Israel said, why do you treat me so badly by telling the man whether you still had another brother? But they said, the man questioned particularly about us and our relatives, saying, is your father still alive? Have you another brother? So we answered his questions. Could we possibly know that he would say, bring your brother down? This is where they're not honest. Go back to the previous text in 42. I went back there this morning, and I wanted to make sure that I was presenting this properly this morning. Are they telling the truth here? And if you go back in 42, he never once asks them about his family. Joseph never once asks about the family. They give up this information willingly. So now they're kind of twisting things a little bit and say, well, we couldn't help it. He asked us. No, he didn't. Jacob doesn't know that, but they're lying here. So they haven't completely changed. I think their heart is moving toward that, but I think these guys still got some stuff that needs working on. Because they gave up this information willingly. I think they were afraid. I think as Joseph was calling him out for being spies, I think they were afraid. And they give up this information willingly, but you gotta give them a little bit of a break here. He says, okay, so we told them about the brother being dead. We told them about our father still being alive and all that. But could we have possibly known that he would say, bring your brother down? No, they probably wouldn't have known that. Why? Because that's all part of God's plan. But Jacob is saying, why in the world did you do that? It's one of those moments where, as a parent, have you ever been a parent when your kid was doing something really dumb and you just wanted to kind of, do one of these on the side of the head? Boy, what are you, dumb? Seriously. It's almost like Jacob wanted to do that. He wanted to say to his kid, seriously? Why did you tell him that? Because in God's sovereignty, they didn't know. They didn't know that God was using Joseph to get them to release that information so he could find out. So this is all part of God's sovereign plan. Continuing on, verses 8 through 10, Judah said to his father Israel, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we might live and not die, we as well as you and our little one. So what he's saying is, Dad, he's pleading with him, Dad, let us go. Please let us go. Not just for the sake of us, but for the sake of our families, Dad. And we don't know how many are in the family at this point. We know by the time you get to the end of Genesis, there's roughly 70 in the family as they go down into Egypt later on. So the family is growing. And what he's pleading with Jacob to say, Dad, please, for the sake of our lives, let us go. And he's not saying it so much, but he's saying in a roundabout way, Dad, even if it means letting Benjamin go, please, Dad, for the sake of our family. Because think about it, in all reality, if you don't let Benjamin go, we're all dead. Isn't that what he's saying in the text? Dad, please, compromise. Let him go, because if not, then you can forget about, we're all going down to Sheol. We're all going to die if you don't let us do what this man is asking us to do. And what's interesting is Judah takes responsibility. The very one who sold Joseph and suggested Joseph be sold into slavery. I don't know that he's thinking that now, but it's ironic that the very one is now the one that's going to take responsibility for the youngest son, Benjamin. And what he's saying is, look, I'll keep a close eye on him. Look in verse 9. I will be surety for him. I will make sure you can bank on the fact, myself, my life, you may hold me responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame before you forever. So I will take responsibility completely. For if we had not delayed, surely we could have been returned twice. He's saying to Dad, we need to get down to business. We need to get there. We could have been there twice and back by now, But God is having to work on Jacob's heart. But he says, look, I'll take ultimate responsibility for Benjamin. So he's now been assured by Reuben, and he's now been assured by Judah. We will make sure. We're going to guard this kid like Fort Knox. We're going to make sure that this kid, we'll keep an eye on him. Nothing will happen to him. Now, can he know that for sure? No, but he's willing to put his life on the line. Don't you think it's interesting that he's willing to put his life on the line now when he didn't have a problem putting Joseph's life on the line previously? Let me just stop for a second. Do you think there's been a change in these men? Are you seeing changes that are happening in the character of these men? Okay, they're not completely righteous, right? Because I still think they're lying to Dad about releasing the information. But if you watch what's happening, their characters are beginning to change. And they went from somebody who was absolutely selfish before in giving up their brother to, I think, we're seeing acts of selflessness here. We're seeing them saying, Dad, I'll give you my two sons. I'll give my life if anything happens to him. What does that say about the relationship to their father? Do they care about their father at this point? Absolutely. They love him. They hate to see him pain like this, but they know they've got to go back, and they know that the only way they can go back is with Benjamin in tow. They cannot go back without him. See, watch how God's sovereignly working the details out here, and watch what's happening to Jacob. And look at what he says in 11 through 14. Then their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Okay, I'll do it. I'm doing it reluctantly, but I'm agreeing. I'm going to let this happen. But do this, and I love this. This is Jacob. Take some of the best products of the land in your bags and carry down to the man as a present a little balm, honey, aromatic gum, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. So he's going to bless this man. He's going to bless his own son. He doesn't even know what he's doing. God's sovereign hand, he's going to bless. So if you got to go, then bring a gift. Bless this man. Take double the money in your hand and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. So Jacob's saying, you know what? I don't know how the money got there. I know we were dismayed, but you know what? We're going to pay for it twice. We're going to make sure that we are honest men. So you see Jacob's character, because has Jacob always been honest? Anybody know? Anybody know what the name Jacob means? He who supplants. Jacob's really good at deceiving, right? He's done it before multiple times, right? And now we see the honesty in Jacob's character where he says, no, if you're going to go, then do this. Don't just go and bless them. So he's beginning to understand through this conversation what has to happen. He must trust Judah in order to do this. This is all part of God's plan to deal with Jacob. And he says, if it must be so, then do this. And this is so incredible when you come to the end of this portion of the text. Look at what he says in 13. He says, take your brothers also and arise, return to the man. So he's coming to the place where God has got him, where he says, okay, if you've got to do it, then you've got to do it. And I love what he says here. And may God Almighty grant you compassion in the sight of the man. That says something about Jacob's relationship to God. So that he will release to you your other brother and Benjamin. So I'm concerned, I'm still a little fearful about what's going to happen. I'm still not over the fear of what could happen to Benjamin, but I now have the assurance of my two of my older sons that they'll take care of him. I've got to trust them. But may God Almighty grant you compassion in the sight of this man. And has he already? What did Joseph do when he discovered who the brothers were last week? He pulled himself away and he went and wept. God has already answered Jacob's prayer and he doesn't even know it. And he will continue to show compassion. So he may release to you your brother and Benjamin. So he'll let Benjamin go. And as for me, this is an amazing statement. If I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved. What he's just said is, I'm going to do what I need to do. And as Doris Day's song used to say, que sera, sera. I'm going to do what I need to do because I know really I have no choice. And if I'm bereaved, then let it be that way. But what? I'm going to trust God. And I'm asking that he would show compassion so that I will see all of my children again. And what he doesn't know, what I love is so beautiful about this story, is what he doesn't know is that not only is he going to see these guys again, but he's about to face the one son that he thought has been dead for 20 years. So by trusting in God, he is going to receive more of a blessing than he ever could have imagined when he let these children go back to Egypt. And then finally in verse 15 it says, so the men took this present and they took double the money in their hand and Benjamin. Then they arose and they went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. And what we're going to find out next week, actually in 4 weeks, because I'm going to take a break from Joseph, we're going to do some messages on giving, biblical giving, as we approach our stewardship time of the year for our budget, is when we get back to the story before Thanksgiving. you're going to see him standing before Joseph and watch what God is going to do. So as we close out the text this week, I'm going to ask you one question, one parting point, and that is this. What is it right now that you need to do, that God needs you to do, God wants you to do, but you don't want to do? What are you holding back on? And the Lord is speaking and moving to get you from reluctant to ready. What is God speaking to you right now that you need to do, that you know you don't want to do, but you know you really need to do? And God is getting you to that place through your circumstances right now. And is there an urgency to wait no longer? If God is speaking to your heart this morning, and I'm talking to those who are watching Facebook Live, I'm also talking to those who might go back and watch this from our YouTube channel later on. What is it that God is doing right now through your circumstances, and he's moving in your circumstances sovereignly, and you realize that God wants you to do something, and you need to go do it? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Like he says to the sons, what are you waiting for? Go do it. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for being in your word as we've unfolded more of your scripture. And we watch literally the sovereign hand of God move in the situation that these boys are in. Father, remind us, Lord, in our lives that you're working in our lives, under the scenes, behind the scenes, in a way that if we would just pay attention to, we would see how you're moving. And Lord, what is it today that we need to do? What are we holding on to? What are we reluctant to do right now, like Jacob? And as we look at our circumstances, we realize we really have no choice. We need to do it. And here's the incredibly amazing thing, God, that when we finally do it, we're going to see more blessing. We can let go of the fear, and we can know that you are going to bless us because of what we've done and how we've trusted you. Lord, just speak to us. Help us to go from here, living in the light of these truths that we've seen, knowing that your sovereign hand is in the middle of our lives, doing stuff that we can't even imagine, that on the other side would just super bless us. And Lord, may we be like Joseph, in the middle of all this, to live a godly life in the midst of all our circumstances. For your glory, our good, and the good of others. In Jesus' name.